Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the seventh session of Book Clubs Across Borders with Sargodha and Herat. Unfortunately, as you know, that due to COVID-19 SOPs and the whole, again, surge in cases, we couldn't get our students online. But we do have videos from their end where they're talking about their reviews on the book, their views on the book. So the book that, and before we begin again, I want to say Ramzan Mubarak to all of you. I hope you're doing well, and this month is going to be very good for us in terms of spirit, in terms of generosity, in terms of kindness. So let's begin our session. The book that we are going to discuss today is In Other Rooms of the Wonders by Daniel Moinuddin. It's a very amazing book. When I read it myself, I was very hooked to it. It's basically a collection of short stories, but the way it is written, every story is connected by one or more character. It revolves around the lives of servants who are working at KK Haruni's house, who is this big landlord who has a lot of land. But we are also seeing through the progression of these stories that he is losing his wealth gradually, and that's why his relatives are staying away from him. His servants can also see that what is going on around him, but we are also seeing an insight through the lives of these servants, that how social strata is different in every person's life, in Pakistan especially. So I would like to ask from any one of you who would like to come up and talk about this book. And I would really like to know that which story resonated with you the most and why. So Herat, over to you.
Hello, I'm Kausar. I want to talk about the book and the story I like the most from the book. The book tells the story of a rich man, as you said, by the name of Haruni, and his servants, his gardeners, his drivers. These eight stories are all linked together, and they show and they portray the old days of Pakistan, the old feudal days of Pakistan. It's all about the history and how it changed throughout the time. And everything that happened in the past, these stories of different people and their different aspects of on their lives. It shows that how our lives are different, has changed from past to now. I liked Selima's stories the most because she was like she wanted to have a great life with all of her problems. She wanted to have a great life, and she wanted to enjoy her life with all of his problems. And I think she was a strong woman, and her story is it portrays the power of a strong woman.
I'm sorry, there was some internet connection. I couldn't get what you said at the end. I'm sorry, can you please come again and repeat what you said at the end in conclusion about Salima's story? I believe that's what you were telling us about.
I think Salima's stories shows the power of a strong woman. With all of her problems and all of her difficulties, she wanted to have a great life and enjoy her life the most. And I think Salima's story shows the power of a really amazing strong woman.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else who would like to come up from your side and talk about In Other Rooms of the Wonders? And any other story, or maybe if you didn't like the book, what part of the book you didn't enjoy, or if you think that that's not really a portrayal of Pakistan so far that you have read about Pakistan.
They are not come optionally. You can choose one of them, and he or she should come and speak with you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't remember your names, but person who is sitting at the front, you
Yes,
can come up
the
now.
right one or the left one?
I think the one sitting in gray shirt. I'm sorry for pointing you out. Your moderator asked me to. Didn't you guys get a chance to read the book? Or was the book difficult in some way? Can you please speak a little loudly?
My name is Elias. I'm a member of this program. I want to tell about this Slimy one that was very good. And we read this book and that it was good. And also it's too effective for our reading and know about something of this book. And it was a good book and really I love it. It was good.
Any story from the book which you really enjoyed reading?
About the story that our partner speak, that was very good. I think it was about the Salimi person. That's really good, and also the things that they are tell you that they were all right and effective for us.
Thank you. Anyone else from your side who would like to come up and talk about any other story from the book? I do remember that. Yeah.
The other story not too effective. It's a good story about this person that say that it was too effective for us, and others are not. In my opinion, others are not so good.
All right.
The book was a little difficult, and this is the reason.
Okay. So I would like to talk about the story in Other Rooms of the Wonders itself. The story, which is basically the title of the book as well. So that story really, connected with me as well because it's basically talks about Mr. Haruni himself, who is the rich guy, who is a feudal lord, who has a lot of land, and now he is living alone in his home in this big house in Lahore. And this relative who comes up to him and starts living with him, and they develop a bond, they develop a relationship. But when Haruni he passes away, um, she loses her status in his house and she has to go back and live in her house. And even Haruni's daughters, they don't let her be a part of the funeral, an active part of Haruni's funeral. So I think the thing that Daniel Moinuddin tried to do with this book is he didn't tell us any moral or he didn't tell us that this is what you are supposed to do. He just told us that this is how the society is. This is the bitter reality. This is how people are living in all kinds of socioeconomic conditions. So anyone else who would like to come up and comment on that, if they understood something from the book, or if they think that I'm wrong and I didn't get any moral from any of the stories. I do remember that you guys are very active and you like to talk. From our previous conversations, I do remember that. So please come up and talk about this book.
This book was a great book, and it's about the people that they work a lot and make them life so great. And in this book, this book said to me, to us, that the people have a lot of problems, and they make them away, and they can solve their problem, and it's about that they say that book say to us, you must never give up, and you must never calm down, and you can't go away and make your life so bad.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else who would like to come up and talk about this book?
I will be fine.
Can you please come a bit forward and speak loudly? Yeah.
I think this book speaks or letters about the social classes. Some person in this book be well or rich, and some of them are poor. So in this time, we know that what is the problem a person that be well, or for example, Layla, a girl, or what is the problem a person that be will that be poor or live in a poverty. It compare the social classes together and say for us that what is the similarity between them, what is the difference between them.
Thank you. So I have a couple of videos from, unfortunately, we couldn't get any video reviews from our friends in Sargodha. They are having their exams. But I do have a bunch of videos from our students from Faisalabad who were reading this book last month. And their reviews are quite interesting as well. So I would like to share those with you, and then we'll take the conversation from there. They have raised some really good points from that book. So I think they will give us good conversation starters. So let me know if you guys can see my screen. I'm going to share it. Can you guys see my screen? All right. I'm just going to play it.
I am Huda Shfaq from Kohinoor Grammar School, Faisalabad. I read the book In Other Rooms, Other Wonders by Danial Muinuddin. This book highlighted the oppressed socio-economic conditions of our society through short stories. All the main characters of these stories were struggling for their economic stability, and this struggle made them to earn illegal money. They were dishonest, they were corrupt, they did not know that they were selling their self-respect, their dignities in order to gain economic stability for themselves, for their children, and for a better future for themselves. This struggle for the economic stability made the Nawabin electrician dishonest and corrupt. He started deceiving his own master to get what he wanted. This struggle made Salima a toy in the hands of other men. I like the writing style of this writer as he very delicately describes everything that happens in our society, and all of the things are true, because living in the same society I can realize that how truly the writer has written all these things, how much truth is there in his words, and how he expresses his thoughts in them. I love this thing in his stories, all of the stories, that how he perfectly describes all the things that are happening in our society. We do not realize that how bad we have become as a society, because all of these things are because we are in this society, and I want that this do not happen again, because people are losing their lives because of these economic conditions and oppressed socioeconomic conditions, and they're losing their respects and their dignities in hands of this all. I don't want things like this to occur, and hands off to Danial Muinuddin, who wrote such great stories highlighting all the truths in our societies, so that people can realize and open their eyes in front of this thing that yes, we are the ones who are responsible for these things that are happening in our society, and so they should not happen in our society. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kamran from Kohinoor Grammar School, Faisalabad. So I read this book in Other Rooms, Other Wonders, which is a really good book. It comprises of 8 different stories which are linked to a person named KK Haruni, his family, his relatives, servants and employees. KK Haruni is an old landlord in Pakistan. So the book is quite interesting, and the major themes which I want to discuss about, which I found in the stories, were social class difference, power and influence, and that nothing lasts forever and everything eventually comes to an end. So the first theme, social class difference, an example of it I found when Husna, a relative of KK Haruni, moves to his house to seek employment, and when they both enter a relationship, the relationship is not supported by people and even his daughter, because there is a social class difference between them. They belong to different social classes, as Husna's relatives and family had moved to a different social class and they were not as high class as Haruni was. And his daughter even demands that Husna should not be present while she visits her father. So even when Haruni died, she was sent back to her village and not allowed to stay in the house anymore. And this is an example that social class difference really affects the life of people in different ways, as if a person if two people from different social classes enter a relationship, the relationship would not be supported by other people because it's seen as something really strange. You belong to a different social class and one who belongs to a lower class, and when you enter a relationship, how can that be possible? It's quite strange to people. And power and influence, the symbol for power is money, because when a person is rich, he has power over the other person who is poor. And how an example which I want to give is from the story about a burning girl, that the rich people, the wealthier, can bribe the judges, so the judges can make a decision in their favor. Like in About a Burning Girl, the judge accepts the bribe, and obviously the decision is given in the favor who gave the bribe, and the bribe can only be given by the richer person. So it really affects the people, because the lower class people cannot get their rights properly. They don't afford to bribe judges, obviously they can't get the decisions in their favor, and and the one who is wrong can even pay for the decision in their favor, so no one can call them wrong, and the lower class people don't get proper justice. So these things are really disturbing as well, because they are present in the society. There is corruption in many fields, and the rich ones, the wealthier ones, have influence to get what they want. And this is the theme that I found in almost every single story. So social class differences can be in other ways too, which are discussed in the book, and it's a really quite interesting book that I found, because it revolves around what is actually happening around us in the society. These all things are present, so I found this book really good, and I would probably recommend anyone to read the book. And that's all I want to say about that book.
So I think you guys were able to watch and hear these videos properly. Anyone who would like to come up and talk about these videos, like the student at the end, she talked about class struggle and power struggle, and the difference of socio-economic conditions of various people in our society. Would anyone of you would like to come up and comment on that?
Um, One of the Sargodha students said that different social classes, different people, um, um, causes people to not receive their rights, their social rights properly. And before talking about the story, she said that everything comes to an end, and everything something bad that's happening in the society will come to an end one day. But at the end, she said that we still have these problems in our society, and people are not able to make relationships while they have differences, like in their someone is rich and someone is poor, they can't make a good relationship between themselves. So how are we supposed to make our connections, our relationships with other people that are different from us? How are we supposed to solve this problem?
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about the points that the last person from Faisalabad raised about human connection and how we look past social classes and really make human connection. And I believe that personally, when I was reading this book, one of the things that I thought about the writing style and about why Daniel Moinuddin wrote this book was to actually create a sense of empathy for the different types of people who are a part of our lives, who we might not be able to really understand initially, or we might not be exposed to. For example, the area that Daniel Moinuddin's book In Other Rooms Other Wonders talks about, it's South Punjab, and it's a rural setting. And right now I'm sitting in Lahore, which is the urban setting in the Punjab region, right, in the Punjab province in Pakistan. But the context is totally different. So despite me being a Punjabi, me being part of this province, I haven't been exposed to these stories and these contexts, socio-cultural contexts, in the sense that I could understand them. And I feel like in that sense, Daniel Moinuddin's book In Other Rooms Other Wonders is also the sort of an insight into what kind of lives do people have in such rural areas and what kind of issues they are facing as well. So at that note, I would like to really share, at this point, I would like to share this video excerpt that we have from the author, Daniel Moinuddin. He was a part of one of the BCAP sessions previously held with, our connections between the two cities in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so at this point, I would like to share his video where he talks about why he wrote In Other Rooms, Other Wonders. So let me just share my screen with you guys.
I began writing this book, sort of in 2002. I'd been writing poetry all through my life, but had never written fiction. But it always kept in my mind that at some point I would write these stories. As a writer, your stories are never directly drawn from life, but they're inspired by characters that and you mix them together and sort of add qualities and mesh people together, mesh personalities together. So these are stories that are based upon my family's farm in South Punjab. What's real about that is that there actually is a guy whose name actually is Nawabuddin, who actually did get shot. And then I began sort of, the story intrigued me, and I began adding to it and shaping it and writing it and rewriting it. And these are stories that have meant a lot to me. These are experiences, these are places that have meant a lot to me and that I've cared about. And I wanted to describe them and to sort of show them to other people.
All right, so now that you've really listened to Daniel Moinuddin and heard his perspective, why he wrote the book, my question to you guys is, why do you think he wrote the book, and was he really successful in conveying what he wanted to convey? As he's saying he wanted to write about the stories and the lives of people who were around him and who didn't have much representation in storytelling, in books, in media. And so one of the reasons was that he wanted to create that sort of representation, and he wanted to write those stories. So in your opinion, was he really successful as someone who does not belong to that context, who doesn't really know that context? Were you able to were you able to have empathy? Were you able to feel empathy for the characters that you were reading? And how successful was the author in accomplishing what he wanted to accomplish? So over to you, Herat.
I think Mr. The author was a great. He was a great author, and he wrote main message, and he wrote to us a great message and a great idea of the culture and the class, the class economical society, and he was great at this.
Anyone else who would like to come up and answer Sana's question, that do you think the author was able to portray the characters honestly, even though he's not from that same socio-economic position in the society? But he was talking about the characters were inspired from his own life as well. Like the video that Sana shared with us, he is telling in that video, Daniel Moinuddin is telling us that Nawabuddin is actually a real life person. He was a person who was working at his father's farm, and this whole incident that is portrayed in the story, that his bike gets stolen and the person who was trying to steal the bike from him, he dies, but that guy didn't actually die in real life. So do you think that the author has been able to successfully portray the lives of these characters? Please, someone who is sitting at the back, please come forward and answer this question. We do understand that this book is a bit different from the books that we have read before, but I think reading such challenging books is also very, it's also a very learning experience for us as well. That such stories, they are not very, flowery. They are not very nice. They show a very grave and bleak picture of our society. And the way Daniel Moinuddin has written these stories, he is just telling us that, look how these things are happening. He's not telling us, oh, this shouldn't have happened. This is how it should have been done. This is how the situation should have been dealt with. He's just telling us that this is how it happened, and think what you think about it.
Their life in this book, their real life as a story, and he make this story, and it's good for us. If we have idea about this book, we can find more than this that he wrote about their story. He said to us that we can't have everything that about we want, and it's good for us. Nothing more.
So my next question from all of you is that, so this book is set in Pakistan, it's written by a Pakistani author. Do you think that these characters are somehow present in Afghan society as well? Would you like to comment on that?
As you said, there are similarities between Afghanistan and Pakistan society, and problems like dying for a bike. It's like it's so unbelievable. Like dying for a bite is so, no one can believe it. And like modern societies, we don't see this every day. But in Afghanistan, because of security problems, we see this every day, going for a simple thing, really like a little problem, little issue, a really something that's not even important. People die for that. And the terrorists, the Taliban kill people for the really simple things. And yeah, we see this every day in our society. And the story that the writer wrote about the one who died for his wife, it conveys the message for us. He was he was successful to convey his message, and convey his message for us, because we don't live in Pakistan and we don't know what's happening in Pakistan society. But when we read these stories, we can see the similarities between us and Pakistan.
Thank you so much for your answer. Anyone else who would like to come up and comment on this?
Hello. I think there are a lot of similarities between these two countries. Of course, when I was reading this book, until you can say like 30 or 50 pages, I thought it is about Afghanistan. And because it was all saying about these things which are happening in our society as well. As I said, like there are a lot of similarities, and we face these problems which Nawab didn't face. We have lots of stories, like Salima's story, whether they are formed by a book with a they are from like a book, or no, they are like stories which our mothers or our sisters maybe were telling us. And the writer, we cannot say that he was 100% successful, because we can't express what people experience until we get into that situation. That is the time we can express what they have experienced, what they have been through. And about the book, I just want to answer one of my friend's question, which asked like, how can we communicate with these people, or how can we get into a relationship with these people who are different from us? I think this book was somehow pointing at it, and it was giving us some solutions to solve the problem. All we have to do is just to accept each other's differences and change it into a strength point. For example, you are different from me. You have something which I don't have. I have something which you don't have. So we can come with each other, and we can complete each other. That's the only way. And the story that I liked was about Salima's story, which was about the strong woman or strong girl who was trying to defend her rights. She could stand up, she could raise her voice to defend her right to achieve what he was brought for.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I do agree with you that the question that your friend raised, sorry, I wasn't able to answer that. It got lost in the conversation somehow. That yes, the story of Husna, in which is also the title of the book, In Other Rooms, Other Wonders, that Husna is from, even though they are relatives, but Haruni and Husna, they are from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and that's why their families are not accepting their relationship. And even Husna is helping out Haruni's loneliness in the last days of his life. She is tending to him, something that was supposed to be done by his immediate family, but Husna is there for him. But when he passes away, his family, his daughters, they don't even let Husna be near his dead body. They don't even acknowledge her presence. And the Husna feels that her presence is not needed there anymore. That's why she packs her bags and she goes away. She goes back to her house. So yeah, I think people being in a relationship who are from different socioeconomic backgrounds, I think this is a problem that's not, it is very prevalent in our culture, in our society, but it's also prevalent it's also present all over the world, because like our friend from Faisalabad talked in her video that money has become a symbol of power in our society, in all around the world. So that's why people from the same socioeconomic backgrounds, people, when they are looking out for a potential spouse, they are seeing that if that person has same amount of money, same amount of wealth, just like my family, because that's how my family is going to accept this person in our family. They are then going to respect this person. And I think that's very, it's very problematic that when we are, we're not seeing that person as a human being. We're not seeing that how kind that person is, how loving that, and how caring that person is. We are just seeing that, oh, this person is bringing this much land or this much money into my family. And that's how my family, my relatives, and my parents are going to respect this person. So I think, like you said, that we need to be very tolerant. We need to be very, we need to have, we need to accept each other. And when it comes to money, I think our religion also teaches us that it's something which is never going to last. Also, this book, each story also tells us that power, money, wealth, beauty, and all of these things, these material things, they're never going to last. You are going to lose them in one day or another. So I would also like to talk about the last story in this book, A Spoiled Man. I hope you guys were able to read that story. I think it's my second favorite story from this book, because the title is very, it's, you think that a spoiled man is going to be about a person who was very rich and he got to live a very amazing, very luxurious life. But a spoiled man is about this guard who is looking out, who is tending to the garden of Harune's, I think, nephew, who is living up in north. So he also gets married to this very young girl who also gets lost somewhere in the forest. And when he tries to go and look out for her, the police is not helping her out, even helping him out, even though he tries to ask his owners, his employers to help him out in finding his wife. But at the end of the story, that guard, that person, he dies, and he is buried somewhere in that garden, which he was tending to throughout the last days of his life. And all the people who were looking at how his life was coming about, they were thinking that, oh, he lived a very, spoiled life. He was able to get a wife. He was able to find a home for himself in the last days of his life. And that's how they were considering him a spoiled man. So I think that was a very moment of reflection for me, that in a way, we also do see other people spoiled, even though they are living, hand to mouth. They don't have as much money or as much power to even survive to the end of the week. So I think, like I said before, that this book is not about telling us that this is the moral of the story, or this is how this thing should have been done, or this thing shouldn't have been done. I think it just gives us a very bleak and very true picture of our society, that this is how things are being done. And we should reflect upon these things, and we should understand that these things should not happen. And it's upon us to make better changes in our society. And I think it can only start from us as individuals as well. I'm sorry for this long speech, but I see Alia has also joined in, and she also loves this book. So Alia, would you like to chip into the conversation?
So I think In Other Room, Other Wonders, the book is quite heavy, and it is, like Hurmat has been explaining, quite a bleak reflection on our society. But I think books like these are really, really important because they make us see ourselves for what we truly are. And once we realize and take ownership of who we are, we can decide whether we are comfortable with it or not. and things that we are not comfortable with, we can change. The story of Husna and the whole Punjabi structure that is shown to us in this book, Other Rooms, Other Wonders by Daniel Moinuddin, is basically just trying to explain to us how societies are functioning in a typical Punjabi village set in Pakistan. And oftentimes when you read this book, you are very unsure as to what time period it is placed in, because it kind of seems to take you back in time to a different world. But then when you actually go and visit those villages today, you will realize that a lot of the rural landscape in Pakistan hasn't really changed much. The societal structure, the system of governance, the hierarchy exists today as it did probably 200 years ago, if not longer. And this kind of makes us reflect on why haven't we evolved as a society? The story, the structure, the different hierarchies that exist, are they actually feeding into the system? Are they complementing the society? Are people comfortable and happy? Or what is causing the growth to be stunted, right? And that is a question that one oftentimes asks when one looks at a lot of rural landscapes across developing countries or underdeveloped countries mostly. And when we look at the rural landscape, why that be in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Burma, we see a lot of parallels that exist. And one of the biggest problems that we seem to find is that it is the lack of resources and lack of basic facilities that are accessible or given to the people at large. And one of the biggest problems is obviously education. A lot of times when you go into these societies and you live there with these people as them, you realize that they don't even know their own self-worth. And you, as being growing up in a different world where you are more integrated into the global village because of internet, because of education, because of travel, because of watching television, which has like, now you have you have your local media, you have international media, everything is at the click of a button. And when the world becomes so accessible and you keep on watching different societies unravel in front of your eyes, you do question, why are these people looking, regardless of what their socio-economic structure is, there is some they look at each other and they respect each other, which is not existing in our societies. So where does that come from? And that is when we realize that it actually stems from their own self-worth. They are systematically and consistently beaten down to make them feel as if they were no better than animals. And I mean, just a little step up. And I remember in oftentimes we see it more in other books that you read about rural land, four basic ethnicities, which are the Pathans, the Hindis, and then a few that exist, but these are the main four broad cultures. You realize will have more care, more protection, more rights, or more feelings towards their animals than they will towards their people, like their dogs, their hawks, their hunting, their horses will weigh more for them in the ladder of priorities than their people. And if you are, as a people, systematically made to believe that you're good for nothing, then modern science has, and modern education actually yields that if you constantly, consistently keep telling people that you're good for nothing and you generationally beat it into them, then that is what they believe. So one of the things is that, and we had the pleasure of actually sitting down and discussing this book with Daniel Moinuddin, and he explained, he himself is a complete elitist. This book is actually his story and based on his father. And he said that when he was writing this book, he wrote it from a place of love, not from a place of wrath or anger or or calling it out. He just wanted to write it as he saw it. And when he was writing about it and other people started reading it, is when he understood what there were so many disparities that existed, because when he was living through it, he didn't even realize. He wasn't calling out. He wasn't like, picking on the society or the people. He was just writing his story the way he remembered it, the way he recalled it as a storyteller. And when he reflected and when other people read the book and they kind of shared their thoughts on the book with him, is when he realized that, oh my God, there are so many disparities that exist within my culture, which I have been living and reading and becoming a part of. So books like these, even though are quite harsh, because they are so honest in their reflection of society, but I think these are the books that mean the most. These are the most important, some of the most important literature to be read for the region, especially by the people of the region, so that they understand things as they are and not as they would like them to be. Because if we want to change things, then we have to first own what all there is. And once we have owned it is when we will be able to figure out what works and what doesn't. And after that, whatever doesn't work, we can just be like, okay, this doesn't work for us, so let's change this. So yeah, that's kind of my rundown of the whole book. And I mean, kind of like a reflection on what this book means for the book club itself and what it kind of means for us to be sharing it with all of you. So I would love to know what my friends in Afghanistan think about literature that is very, very portrayal of our societies, and oftentimes the not very good parts of our societies. And if there is anything like that that they have come across in their society in Afghanistan that they would like to share. So Herat, over to you.
Again, hello. I want to take something else other about the books and reading books and reaction to this books rights. I want to tell that if we even one person have a reaction action to the books writers, we will improve too much. Even that we can't imagine that how we can improve. For example, if we say to the if we look to book, they were writes lots of major and lots of nice text that I really when I read the books, I really excited about this sentence. That if we even have one person reaction to this book text, we can improve too much, and we will see each other in lots of other places. For example, we must such as the first step, we must accept each other and reflect each other to one. We are the complete of one another, and we can complete one by one other.
I would just like to repeat Alia's question, but because I think it's really important that we all answer it or maybe reflect on it, that why such literature like the book In Other Rooms, Other Wonders? Why is it important to read such books or write such books which depict the harsh reality of our society? So anyone who would like to come up and answer this question?
Hello again. I think reading such books is not just enough. We have to read it, we have to realize it, we have to analyze it, and lastly, we have to experience such things to know what the characters of the book were through, what they were experiencing, and how they would feel when they were experiencing such things. Some of us might have some experience of that, and some of us might not have it. But the point is that just reading a book is not enough. We have to understand the writer. We have to understand the characters. We have to think about it, what the writer was trying to just teach us, and what the characters of the book experienced. I think after reading every book, we have to just close it up, and we have to think about it, about I don't know, 30 minutes or 1 hour to just to keep it in mind what you have learned from this book, what this book was teaching you. How can I apply those things which were mentioned in the book? How can I help my society by reading such books? That is the whole idea of reading such books.
Thank you so much for your answer. And I totally agree with you that yes, it's not just about reading the book, it's also about talking about the book. It's also about analyzing the book. It's also about understanding that why the author wrote this book. We have now so many sources that we can, dig deeper into our personal favorite authors or their writing styles or understanding the book, like having book clubs or maybe joining an online community about that book and understanding it, analyzing it. And also about, I think, such harsh or bleak literature also makes you understand that how our society is functioning, because of course we cannot be in everyone's shoes. We cannot be around all kinds of people. So I think such books, such literature also makes you understand the lives of people who are not around you. So I think such books, I would also like to mention another very famous author from Pakistan, Manto, who is also very famous in talking about things of our society which are not so, they're not very much appreciated. His literature was banned so many times that people were not accepting that, oh no, this really doesn't happen in our society. But there was a part of book lovers who was agreeing to it, that yes, Manto writes very harsh realities of our society, and we need to accept them. And he was writing at the time when there was martial law in our country, there was dictatorship in our country, but he was still writing those books. So I think such authors should be also appreciated. Their work should also be supported, because they are also making us understand that everything is not amazing, everything is not happening, everything is not ideal. We also have to understand that there are things happening outside our bubble as well, and we need to counter those as well, because only in that way we can have a balance in our society. Only then we can have some stability in our lives. So anyone who would like to come up and say some ending remarks, since we are getting to the end of our session, we have only 4 minutes left now.
Yes, as earlier you said, one of the main problems in our society is not getting a proper education and not being literature. And the main reason why all people can't get a proper education is security. Because in our country, in Afghanistan, we don't have security, and people are not able to, especially women and girls, they are not able to get a proper education, and people are told by their fathers that how should they live and what should they do in their lives, and they think the knowledge that they are being told by their fathers or by their mothers, that's enough to for them to live and to move on. They just think that they should earn money, they should be able to earn money and be able to live and breathe and get eat something, and that's enough for their lives. But I think it's not that's not right. We should fight about this, find solutions for these problems, and we should fight against these people, and they should be told that it's not about what you know about past and the history and the experiences of your fathers. You should know more about because we as we move on, our countries and our societies are improved day by day. We improve day by day, and we should get the modern education, and we should find the new solutions for our problems.
Thank you so much for your remarks. And on that note, I would also like to appreciate all of you for having such amazing thoughts, for having such amazing input on all the books that we have read so far. And I would also like to, give a special shout out to the girls of Herat, because you are very, uh, passionate about reading, you are passionate about discussing your ideas, discussing your thoughts. So thank you so much for that. And Alia, would you like to say something at the end?
Thank you everyone for being amazing. Thank you for thinking outside the box. Thank you for questioning everything that exists around you and figuring out whether what exists is what you want or not. The idea of this book club is for us all together to look at our societies, look at things within our systems which have value, which have potential for growth, which have potential for our self-identification, and then move towards a more progressive, better Afghanistan and Pakistan, because that is at the core of what we are trying to do, to create a better society, to create a better world. And on that note, I would like to say thank you again for reading the books with us, for taking out time to discuss these books with us, and for always bringing your individual ideas and your individual takes on the book. So yeah, that is just really, really heartwarming for us. And that kind of makes us believe in what we do and makes us want to do better. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So I think that's it from our side. Khuda Hafiz and Ramzan Mubarak again to all of you.